A lot of us have a history of drinking alcohol, which diminishes oxygen availability in your tissues. A lot of us have allowed toxins to accumulate over a long period of time. Those toxins are themselves triggering acidification of the tissues. And whenever you have acid in the tissues, you will have less oxygen. How much less? A lot more than you think. Whenever we go in the pH scale from 6.9 to 6.8, how much less oxygen are we going to have? We think it's 1 because we are now, but we are not measuring now the logarithmic scale of protons. We're doing a different calculation here. We're looking for oxygen availability in the tissues. If you do the calculation, you'll find out that when you lower your pH from 6.9 to 6.8, even though it's just a 0.1 in the pH scale, you have lowered your amount of oxygen 10 times. So you're operating on only 1/10 of the oxygen. When you go from 6.8 to 6.7, you're lowering it again tenfold. So if you only go from 6.9 to 6.7 in the tissues, your level of oxygen is reduced by 100 times, 100-fold. This is dramatic, which indicates that we cannot use a dipstick to measure the tiny differences that could occur that would lead to problems with our physiology. Even the tiniest change is enough to create the pathology that could lead to cancer, to infections, to viruses, bacteria that are anaerobic, that don't like oxygen. All it takes is just a tiny change in pH. That is not measurable, not by a dipstick, and not even by a biopsy of the actual tissues, which are not ever represented by your urine, as you have now discovered. So let's assume for a second that we don't have good oxygenation in the tissues, which most of us have suffered as a result of all those toxins, all the acid-forming food that we have had in the past. And we'll get shortly into acid-forming foods. And by the way, all foods are acid-forming. Even the ones that you say that are alkaline-forming, they're acid-forming. So we're making ourselves look a little foolish when we say that, because remember, every time you burn, every time you get any carbs to become energy, you will form some acid. The question is only how much. Obviously you want to minimize, but even if you maximize it one day, it will go down the kidney, the urine, as protons, which is what we want, to get rid of those acids. But if we have a problem and we are not oxygenated, and we have insufficient glucose coming into the cell because of problem with insulin production or with insulin receptors, which is a problem that many Americans have, then our metabolism becomes less clean, and instead of just creating carbonic acid, we start making lactic acid and beta-hydroxybutyric acid, which are acids that are far more difficult for us to get rid of. We don't have an easy mechanism to get rid of them. When do you make lactic acid? When you work out so hard that you develop muscle pain. Why do you have muscle pain? Because the acids, the lactic acid accumulation and other toxins and tissue debris and the inflammatory process that result are themselves triggering pain receptors in the muscle, telling you to stop the activity because you are destroying your own tissue. Pain should tell us to stop what it is we're doing. Don't work through the pain like some coach will tell you. Listen to your body. It's telling you that too much acid has been formed because as the muscles work too hard, they exceeded the capacity of your circulatory supply to provide oxygen. And we had to start making energy in a different route, in a less efficient route, that is perhaps 20 times less efficient in the amount of energy-rich molecules that we make per molecule of glucose. Almost 20 times less efficient. That's the same metabolism as cancer patients develop. It's the same metabolism that we see with people who have fibromyalgia. Therefore, we don't want to be there, but too many of us are moving in that direction because of our food choices. And we end up creating these other acids, the lactic acid and the other acids that are a lot more difficult to get rid of because they don't function as a part of our buffering system of acid and bases within the circulation. So we don't know what to do about them. Actually, we do know. We do know, but we pay a heavy price.